Hey guys, welcome back to a second chapter of a semi-fictional life. I am reading Witchcraft at Salem by Chadwick Hansen. It is a non-fiction, modern-day take on what happened. What's wrong with me? Can I not see? I don't think I can see. There's something wrong with the light. Heh, that's better. Okay, so let's get back to what I was saying. Witchcraft at Salem is a modern, not really modern, but I think I believe it's from the 60s or 70s. It's a book about how not all of the people who were executed for witchcraft were entirely innocent. That they used, reverse psychology and just psychology in general, that kind of thing, and they really took advantage of psychosomatic responses. And anyways, the book is mostly, are we past the 30-second mark? Good. The book is mostly BS. I'm going to say BS just in case. I don't want this video to get suppressed. So it's mostly some old white dude trying to justify the murder of innocent people, because it doesn't matter if you cannot just like these days you cannot blame someone for words, at least unless those words are threatening. I don't know if that's true or not. Maybe you can, but I would hope not. Like if I said, okay, he'll be right back. You can't say, I'm trying to word this. I don't script any of these, but what I'm trying to get at is, if people don't like me and they want to call me names, then that's fine. But threats of violence and such should be taken seriously. So don't get me wrong there. I believe in freedom of speech. Yes, a damn dirty liberal who believes in freedom of speech. I do. I honestly believe that you can say and do whatever you want to. Now, I do block and delete comments all the time. I didn't used to, but then I thought of it this way. Why would I wouldn't let you in my house. And this is my virtual house that you're stepping into. This is my virtual presence that you're stepping into. If I would not allow you to be in my presence in person, why would I allow you to be in my presence online, in my digital space? So yeah, I started deleting people, started blocking people. And, I think the funniest thing is when I did my F Trump video way back, when he first won, and then there was this other stuff that came out, and I just kept my mouth shut, and I was like, I don't want to make this political, but everything's political. I remember everybody saying, you're going to lose half your followers. I lost 300 people out of, let's see here, 11,000 people? I lost 300 people. At least that's what my subscriber went down to. And, good riddance to bad rubbish, that kind of thing. But anyways, this video, I'm not actually going to be talking about witchcraft at Salem this entire time, and I'm not doing any more political narration, anything like that. What this video is about, and who this video is for, are all of the people who emailed me because of the previous video, the first video in this new series, for those of you who want to hang out with me when I'm gone. This is the last time I'm going to mention it, but I have polycythemia vera, which is a blood disorder where your blood thickens, and I also have, and Jen Bernardini, this is for you if you're reading it, it's not just a matter of having that, it's also a matter of the 2-inch DVT that I have, that could throw at any time. But anyways, that's a deep vein thrombosis, for anyone not in the know. But this video right here, this video is for everyone who emailed me. I'm still here. Towards the end, not at the end of it, but toward the end, I said, hey, look, if you're still here, tell me why you hung around. Tell me why, why you're still here. I don't understand it. Whether it be because you consider me a friend, whether it be because my voice is soothing to you, whether it be just my presence making you feel safe, or because you hate me with such vitriol that you're obsessed with me and need to have some kind of content. Tony, I'm looking at you. Tony and them. You'll understand that if I'm not never mentioning y'all again. This is the rest of this is going to be all positive, and they're going to be stories from my life. When I originally thought of this, I wanted to call it Reading with E, and that was it. I wasn't going to do any of the narration or anything. But then I sat down and I truly considered, maybe I do 2 videos. Maybe I do one video where I'm talking to people and telling them my life story, like I'm writing my own biography here. Or maybe, maybe I have that one where I'm narrating, and then I have another one where I'm just sitting there in silence reading, and y'all can just read with me. Because nothing more annoying than having someone talk while you're trying to read. And the reason why I'm shooting videos like this is because I don't really have time to edit them. The only thing I'm editing out of these are the beginnings and the ends. And also, I like the idea of just hanging out with you guys. And that's where we're going to go from here. I'm going to tell you guys some stories about my life, things that affected the person that I became, and why I became the person that I am today. The writer, the reader, the graphic artist, all the varied parts of my life that either I talk about all the time or I never talk about. And this video in particular goes out to everyone who sent me an email telling me why they were still here. Off the top of my head, I'm not looking at it. I'm not looking at my email, but off the top of my head, there was Ty, who texted me also. There was Hayley. Love you, lady. We're going to talk about some stuff in here that I want to talk to you directly, and I'll mention your name again when we get there. But first of all, I want to talk to Roman. You sent me an absolutely beautiful email. I don't know what he's doing, but I'm going to continue on with the talking. You sent me an absolutely beautiful email about your own life and how much I meant to you and where I fit in your life. It was extremely hard to read. It took me over the course of 3 hours, and just closing it and opening again, it was incredibly hard to read because it was so magnificently well written. And it's really hard to read through tears, my friend. In fact, I forwarded it to my wife, Shell, and the only thing I said in the email that I forwarded to her was, "I did it. I am someone's Stephen King." Now, what does that mean? It's probably obvious, but when I say I'm someone's Stephen King, it means that my work has meant as much to someone that I do not know. I mean, yeah, Roman, we're friends. You're on the Discord, but we don't truly know each other. And I want to try and change that here. All right, buddy? Sorry, I'm a little bit emotional here because Stephen King meant so much to me. He's the one who truly got me into reading. And we're going to get through all that. But you know how I do. I ramble, I come back, I get choked up, and I stumble until I'm better again. And it seems to me that, based on your email to me, that you're very, very similar. You've lived a very similar life to what I have. And I want to tell you a bit about that. There are, for those of you longtime viewers, I'm talking like people who were around 10 years ago, this is gonna be repeating certain things, and maybe even Roman has went back, and maybe you've gone back, Roman, and looked at these videos, but there's gonna be some repetition here. I'm gonna talk about Dolores Claiborne, the first book that I read by Stephen King, why it was the first book, and all that stuff. If you don't know these stories, then I'm gonna add some more to them. It's not just gonna be a rehash, but yeah. So I'm going to talk about the hurricane that destroyed all of our stuff in 1995, including my mom's original Stephen King collection. I'm going to talk about the second time my Stephen King collection was destroyed. I still do not remember what it was a hurricane with an I that came all the way up to Montgomery, Alabama. You guys can do your own research, but what happened is it flooded the storage facility where my books were. But we'll get to all this. I'm going to tell you how that made me feel and how it affected my life, and so on. So let's go ahead and jump into that. I guess I'm going to call this subchapter 2 of chapter 2. This is a story about the great book closet. Yeah, so sit back, relax, grab some snacks, and let's jump right into it. Let me have some coffee. I'll be ready to go. Ah, smooth. You old heads out there will remember that one. Okay. So my mother was a devout Christian. Very prudish. Didn't like anything regarding sex or cussing or any of that stuff. If you've read Bay's End, you can quite imagine how upset she was to have, she only read the Edward Lorn stuff because the Edward Lorn stuff was the only stuff that I really cared enough about to send to her. So she was in the dark about quite a few of my pen names also, especially my erotica. Like I said, she was very prudish. But she would enjoy the darkest, foulest, most erotic reading material. And I had no idea about this until I hit my teenage years. Well, I literally mean teenage years, like the beginning of my teenage years, 12, 13. I don't know if we consider 11 and 12, 10, 11, 12, all the double digits up to 19 teenage years, or if it's just 13, the ones that have teen in them. But anyways, I'm going to call them my teenage years, and that means from 13 to 19. So my mother, who read such romances as written by Suzanne Collins, such horror as written by Stephen King, such speculative fiction as written by Dean Koontz, and all of those authors around that time frame, all of the big authors, John Saul, all of them. Raymond Feist, of all things. You guys know about that one? I believe the book that I know is called either Fairy Tale or something along those lines. It's one of the coolest covers known to man. And I have a copy of it. If I can find it, I'll put it at somewhere in this video. And if not, it's whatever. So let's see here. We're between, I can't really see. We're almost 13 minutes in. So that'll be the reminder that I set myself. If I can find the book in my own great book closet, I'll show you guys a picture, or I'll cut in something from online that I can search up. Okay, so my mother read all this stuff that would have, had I found out about it earlier, made me clutch my pearls. Because my mother, I was a very foul-mouthed little brat. I cussed a lot, and I got in quite a bit of trouble for cussing as much as I did. Everything was F this, F that, mother effer, all that stuff. And yes, I am censoring myself here, because if not, this will suppress things and it won't even go out to my viewers. It's not about monetization right now. It's about you guys actually getting the notifications. Also, by the way, I guess I went with the schedule from last week that I mentioned as a hypothetical. On Tuesdays, you're getting these videos where I'm narrating over my reading, and then on Thursday, you are getting just the Reading with Eve video. So yeah. Anywho, my prudish mother loved to read all of these naughty books. And there was quite a few Harlequin romances in there, talking about, guys with their shirts open, ladies with heavy, voluptuous bosoms, in low-cut dresses, that kind of thing. And it blew my mind that my mother was so many different people. And I think that's the first time that I started to create my own versions of myself. And yes, for those of you who got it, who bought it, there were other versions of us. It's kind of like a wink and a nod to people in my life who knew who knew that I was so many people, who knew that sometimes I would publish a story under multiple different names and only change the title. To any anthology, to any anthology editors that found that out and got very upset, I honestly do apologize. But you know, I'm a professional liar. I apologize. From the depths of my heart, I might be laughing, but I really do apologize, because if someone had done that to me, I wouldn't have taken too kindly to it. So back to my mother. This prudish woman had a closet, a walk-in closet, absolutely full to bursting with books. I'm sitting here now and I have my eyes closed and I am picturing this, of opening that closet and finding a world of possibilities, of myriad lives, of mercurial worlds. That's a hell of a memory, man. That's a hell of a memory. Opening those is almost like finding the wardrobe that led to Narnia. I opened those, and before I go on, I want to tell you what I was reading up until that point. I was reading Fear Street Chronicles, that stuff from, oh man, I forgot his name, R.L. Stine. There we go. R.L. Stine. I love those. I wasn't too big into Goosebumps. I didn't find Goosebumps until I was around 11 or 12, and by then I had, quote unquote, just imagine me doing air quotes, quote unquote, I literally thought they were for children, that they were too kiddie, too silly. Nobody ever died in them. They were too safe. And I didn't like that. I did not like safe. Because by 11, I had been molested by a woman who was 40 years old. And that's my coming of age. You know, I was forced to grow up, not only in that sense, not only in the sexual sense, but also in a sense that I had to go to work when I turned 16. I had to help support my family. My mom had broken her knee. My dad was a layabout deadbeat who paid no bills. And he had it wasn't a company, but he used to cut grass for money, but the only thing he used his money on was cigarettes and alcohol. He never beat us. Except for one time he did hit my mother. That's a tale for another time. Put down in the comments whether or not whether or not you want to hear that story. It's a pretty awful one, though, so just keep that in mind. She got her comeuppance, though. She got him back. Anyways, so yeah, at 16, I was supporting a family of 3 by myself. My mom couldn't work. She was getting workman's comp, but even back then, workman's comp was a pittance compared to what she was actually making. It was not a livable wage, so I had to quit school. Yes, I am a high school dropout. I have a GED. I have some college education, but I am a high school dropout. One of the reasons I'm a high school dropout, other than the fact that I had to work, was literally, I was tired of being smarter than my teachers. I had certain teachers that would, especially my science teacher in high school. I don't even know what science it was, but I know they're not just called science. But I don't remember too much from that time period. But I do remember him yelling at me when I told him that blood couldn't. What he said is that blood turned blue. No, blood was blue until it hit oxygen and then it turned red. I said, that doesn't make any sense because there's oxygen in blood. And he got very upset with me and started yelling at me. And I've had a lot of experience with people like that over the course of my life, where the more wrong they are, the louder they get. And that's how I kind of look at Tony and them, the people like that I come across is like, wow, just because you're loud and obnoxious does not make you right. But anyways, back to what I was saying. I got tired of being smarter than the teachers who were supposed to be teaching me. I read, by the time I was 16, I had read, probably 300 to 400 books already. I read classics. I read modern stuff. I read Max Brand. I read, Max Brand, if you don't know, he's a men's fiction author. And he wrote, him and like 9 other dudes wrote under that name. And it was just it's the stupidest shit, but they were so much fun to read, dude. And it's funny because when I came across Nelson DeMille, who would seem like a romance author name, right? Come across him in his John Corey series, and I was like, wait a second, this is men's fiction but written at a literary level. And then when I got even older, I was like, that ain't nothing literary about this. It's just the letters, not the letters, but the words uh, Nelson DeMille used are like one step above, child's literature. But I only had experience with children's literature, right? And he read really quickly, like Stephen King read. But I wouldn't have started reading and just devouring as much as I could if it hadn't been for Stephen King. And the reason for that is because when I was 13, I had already found my mother's the great book closet is what I've always called it. Because it did feel like it needed a proper name, and the young mind that found it always thought of it like that. The great book closet. How beautiful is that? How wonderful is that? It speaks to libraries. It speaks to literature. It speaks to adventure. It speaks to heartbreak. It speaks of everything. The great book closet. It's endless with no back. There are no walls whatsoever. Just infinite. Because at the back of it were her clothes. Her modest nurse's outfits. And her church clothes. And it looked like there could be no back to it. Because it felt like all you had to do was pull apart those clothes and there was a whole other hallway behind it. Now, on both sides of this massive, remember, I was only 5'1" when this happened. This massive closet. Massive. It just felt like it would go on forever. And both walls, massive bookshelves just full to bursting with pages. And that absolutely wonderful vanilla scent that I always assume with my... I always... Not assume. I always equate with my mom. She smelled like dead books. Like decay... Not dead books. My mother smelled like decaying paper. That's that vanilla smell you smell when you go into an old bookstore or a library. That's the smell you're smelling, is the scent of decay. That means death can be beautiful. That means that even the dying can leave something behind. And it's a beautiful thing to me. An absolutely gorgeous idea. That could be a thing. That the dead and dying could mean something. So when I opened up this book closet, I believe that I was like 9 years old, I believe the first time I found it, I found that most of the books in there were by a man named Stephen King. And I pulled these books down and they had the craziest covers. These reptilian fingers coming out of a storm drain. This dog foaming at the mouth. A weird cover of a man and some kind of lizard, anthropomorphic lizard, swashbuckling, like fencing, like sword fighting. All these covers just reached out to me. Even the very modest and romance-like cover for Salem's Lot. I wanted to know what was in that tiny town. And then I started looking at these John Saul books, and it's like Blind Fury, or whatever the book was called. It was pink, hot pink. And there was this young, like, girl with a bonnet on from, like, the Little House on the Prairie. Her eyes were glowing with just violent energy. And I saw these Dean Koontz books, and they were black, but they had this neon lettering, this neon-colored font that just screamed at you. The Voice of the Night. Darkfall. Twilight Eyes. Oh, Twilight Eyes. It's amazing reading these books. Eventually. And why do I say eventually? Because eventually I would get to them. It wasn't until I turned 13 and my mother had joined I don't know how many of you are going to remember this, and I'm definitely dating myself. I was born in 1980. I'm not old, but I feel old. You know, my body feels old. Um, so way back in the way back in the 80s and 90s, there was this thing called the Stephen King Book Club, and it was like a Book of the Month club, but only for Stephen King because he sold so many books and had so many books, and every year he had a new book out, sometimes 2 or 3 a year, and that was just unheard of back then. Um, so I get this, I get this notion. I'm like, the next time my mother gets something from the Stephen King Book Club, I'm gonna lift it, and I did. We'll get to how I did it and all that stuff in just a second, but I want to go back to the Stephen King book Club. They gave you calendars every year, and up until the point where we lost our stuff in the hurricane in 95, that was Hurricane Opal in 95. We were living in Theodore, Alabama, Mobile, Alabama, for for reference, how it came through. Anyways, so the Stephen King book club, it would send you one of his old books every month at an exorbitant cost, especially from back then. It was like $25-$30 a book, plus shipping and handling, and the shipping and handling was like $9.99. My mom maxed out all of her credit cards by the time I was 15, and we had to move from California to Alabama to live with my sister. But that's a whole other story. That's not book related at all. And right now, I'm still talking to you, Roman. And right now, you know, it was funny because they would send out his old books, but when his new books came out, they would send you a really, really cheap copy of the new book. It was like a Book of the Month club kind of thing, like I said, but it was that quality. They were really crappy quality books. So one day I'm going out to get the mail because I was a latchkey kid. And I say that, yes. I just want to make sure it's clear. Yes, my dad didn't work, and he only worked to get beer and cigarette money. But he would also fall asleep, just like in Bay's End, if you'll remember, Roman. Just like in Bay's End, where he'd sit and fall asleep watching the Cubs. The dad would. Or he just watching the Cubs. I don't know. It's been ages since I wrote that book. But I know he was a Cubs fan. Ryan Dawson, I believe. There's so many. Andre Dawson? I can't remember. But it was my dad was always talking about the Cubs. And I never could figure out why, and I never knew why. Because even when I asked him, even when I inquired, why do you like the Cubs? They're from Chicago. You were born in Calamasa. Well, why do you like the Cubs? And, he never had a good answer. He's like, I just do. I like how they play. But what I think is, back then they were actually a good team. And I think my dad latched onto it in the same way that I latched onto the Cowboys football team when they were winning back-to-back Super Bowls. When I really latched onto the Bulls because the three-peat, that kind of thing. I think my dad latched onto the Cubs just because they were winning at the time. But he never told me, so I'll never know for sure. As a latchkey kid, I come home. I don't remember if he was sleeping in there or not, in the living room like he always did, passed out in front of the ball game. I really can't remember that part. But I do remember that I was in charge of getting the mail every day. So when the mail truck finally came, after I had already gotten off school, the mail truck had finally come. I went out there and I opened it up, and there was this box in there. And I pulled it out and I read the return address, and it was the Stephen King Book Club. Now, mind you, I was 9 when I was bit by a dog. If you want me to talk about that, Roman, I will. Just let me know. Email me again. But I'd been bitten by a dog, and I was pretty much, relegated to my room for a while because my mother and father, well, mostly my mother, didn't want anything else to happen to me. And the dog at the time, the dog that had bit me, was still across the street under quarantine, because of, they have to keep the dog under quarantine to make sure it doesn't have rabies. So that's what happened. And I was pretty much stuck in my room. I couldn't go out and play with my friends. And here I was at 9, just kind of wandering around the house with my dad asleep in there. Now, these are 2 separate instances I'm talking about. This is specifically when I was 9. I didn't steal the book until I was 13. Okay, so let's get the timeline straight here. Sorry. If I was writing this stuff down, I could have edited all this. We're also coming up on a break. You're going to see me take a break but I'll be right back instantly. So if you need to pause the video, that's a perfect time. I will try to also stop the narration there. But anyways, so at 9 years old, I found this book closet, but I couldn't take anything out because I knew my mother was almost Annie Wilkes level of OCD kind of deal. She knew where everything was, and I damn sure wasn't going to move her penguin. You know what I mean? The penguin being the book. All right, time to drink water, time to go get up and walk around, all that good stuff. Pause the video, and he's back. Okay, so to finish up what I was talking about, there was the magic and everything. I knew I couldn't be a part of the magic of the Great Book Closet. And I knew this because if I took anything out, I wouldn't be able to get it back in there before she got to work, or I wouldn't be able to put it back in the same way. And even though I hadn't read Mystery or Misery, I had seen the movie. So yeah, I knew the concept of the penguin. You know, my mom was very Annie Wilkes. She was even a nurse. I wasn't going to move the penguin because I wouldn't know how to replace the penguin. I would get caught. So I waited. And I never even told her that I knew what was in the Great Book Closet. I just knew that it was there. It was my secret. Her secret was now my secret. So 13, I'm 13 now. And I find this book with the return, I find this box in the mail with the return address of the Stephen King Book Club. And I took it because she had not laid her hands on it yet. This was unknown territory. And for the next 3 days, my mother, for some odd reason, it's almost as if she knew, and maybe she did know, but she let it happen. But if you know what Dolores Claiborne is about, you know a 13-year-old should not have been reading that book. But 3 days it took me to read that book. And this is, it's 300 pages, over 300 pages, I believe. And I was used to books that were about 150 pages. That's how long the Fear Street books were. I never read anything, bigger than that. I wasn't allowed to, unless my mom read it first. So either I was relegated to the books that she had read and deemed appropriate for a child my age, or I had to read something that, the publisher said was appropriate for my age, whether it be Fear Street or Goosebumps or Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, so on and so forth. I read that in 3 days, man. I never wanted to stop reading, but I kept it. I had a bunk bed because I had two sisters that moved out. Both of my sisters, one's 12 years older than me and one's 14 years older than me. So by the time that I was even 13, they had already moved out with their husbands and whatnot. But I ended up inheriting, instead of my parents buying me a new bed when I grew out of my, toddler bed, what they did is they took the bunk bed that my sisters had and they put it in my room. So now I had a bunk bed. So how did I hide the book for 3 days? Literally, I would put it up underneath the mattress of the second bunk. And I didn't sleep up there. I always slept, and later on when I was dirty magazines and stuff like that, I would hide them in the same places. That was my little thing. And then finally, when my parents caught me with stuff that I wasn't supposed to have, namely cigarettes, and of course there was the adult literature up there also, but the cigarettes were the main thing. When they caught me with all that stuff, that bunk bed was gone, man. My closet, they searched my closet once a day, all that stuff. Anywho, so I managed to read that book over 3 days with only 2 hours at a time before my mom came home, because my mom would come home and she would check on me. She loved me to death. My father, I don't think that man ever loved anybody. But my mother disagrees with that. She said he was so protective. Sorry about that. Where were we? Something happened and I lost I lost quite a bit. I lost 10 minutes. I've been going back and forth between anyways, but I've been going back and forth, and I'm glad I was flipping back and forth between the narration, making sure that was still running, and this, anyways, but my father was supposedly so protective of me, which I don't know why. I guess because he always wanted a son, and I came along, and he didn't know what to do with me. So he pretty much, for the most part, ignored me and kept me inside. And when the dog attacked me, bringing this around full circle again, when the dog attacked me, I guess from what my mom said, is that, he kind of wanted to lock me away. And that's a horrible thing. Um, but it did make me feel better about my relationship with my father. In so much as it made me consider how broken he was. That he would want to treat me the way he was treated when he was a child. And there's more to it than that, but he was illiterate. He only had 10% hearing in one ear, and he was completely deaf in the other. And he had this what is it, hearing aid that I always remember the squeal, because he would literally put his hand over his ear so that the hearing aid would feedback. It would squeal, and that's how he tests to make sure it was working. Because he had so little hearing in that ear, he just needed to make sure that it was on. But because of that, he was always put in the back of the classroom. He was always ignored because he couldn't hear what the instructor was saying anyways. When he was 7, he went swimming in stagnant water, and he got an ear infection in both ears and lost hearing in one completely, and then, like I said, only 10% in the other one. And with the hearing aid, it only went up to 20%. Anyways, I don't remember where I was, and I apologize for that, Roman. But where I'm going to go now is I read Dolores Claiborne over 3 days, and even then it was only like 2 hours at a time. I blew through this book, this 300-page adult book, and it wasn't even the story that got me. It was how he told the story, how Stephen King told the story in her words. There were no chapter breaks. Nothing that I knew from what the books that I had read. It just went on and on, but I never wanted to stop reading. And when I went back and tried to read another Fear Street book after that, I couldn't get into it because it kept stopping. I was like, I want this to keep going. It kept stopping at the chapters, and when the people did die, it wasn't in brutal fashions. It wasn't an old woman falling down the stairs. It wasn't things like that. It wasn't the horrible things that happened to the kids in the book. The kid in the book, the little girl, Dolores' daughter. And the idea that she had been blamed for a murder she didn't commit, and then got away with the one that she did. That was a crazy idea to me. It's like, world, that isn't justice. That isn't a just world, but the world isn't just. The world is just unfair. So, I read this book, and I could hear every night afterward, after I finished the book, I could hear him scratching at the well. If you've read Dolores Claiborne, you know what I'm talking about. I could hear him scratching at the well. This wasn't even a horror story. Dolores Claiborne is a piece of literary fiction. It's a story that has nothing to do with plot. And I think that's what Stephen King was always the best at. He was never good with plots. He was always good with character and theme and circumstance and situations. Like, you put somebody in a weird situation. You put someone in any situation, and then you just watch to see how they react. And that's what Stephen King does. He puts people in situations, and then he lets them react. And that might sound crazy to someone who doesn't write, who isn't creative. But for anybody who is, man, that's the magic, isn't it? How all these people that do not exist truly exist. How a lie, Roman, how a lie can sometimes tell more truth. How fiction, how sometimes life can be stranger than fiction. Yeah. So, I started. First off, before I get to that point, let me end the story about Dolores Claiborne. Once I was done with Dolores Claiborne, and I made sure to be very, very careful with this book, I put the dust cover back on. that had sat in the box, and the box has the cardboard box is what protected, because it was like a flap that you tear open, right? It wasn't like, I had to break tape and retape it. It was a glued flap that, it's kind of like Amazon used to send them. Anyways, who cares about the box? Who cares about the box? So what I did is I literally just put the dust jacket back on, that the dust jacket that had been protected from getting crushed and a seam getting, folded into it, because it was in the box underneath a very light twin mattress, up on the top bunk of my bunk beds. I put the dust jacket back on very carefully. I wiped the whole thing down as if my mother could read latent fingerprints, Is looking back on it, man, it was crazy. I was very meticulous in what I did. And I guess part of it might have even come from reading Dolores Claiborne and how she got away with what she did do. I slid it back into the box. I got actual super glue, not the Elmer's glue that I had, not the glue sticks that I had, none of that stuff. I got actual super glue that my dad kept out in the garage, his own little personal space, where he pretended to work on cars. That's a story for a whole other time. And I took that and I put it in the mailbox, just like it had been. I put it in the mailbox, and Mom came home, and it was almost like she knew, like I said, almost like she knew, because she kept asking, where's my Stephen King book? It usually comes around now. Where's my Stephen King book? It usually comes around now. She kept mentioning that. I guess she wanted to read it so bad. She knew it was coming, and she knew she was going to pay this exorbitant cost for it. Because even when you canceled back then, it took a while to cancel. You couldn't just call and cancel. You had to send them the cancellation form that came in the book. So it'd be 2-3 months. It said a processing speed of 4 to 6 weeks on that joker just to cancel it. So, you're going to have to get charged more. You were going to get more books. And so she's very adamant about wanting her book. And now that I look back on it right now, I just realized it's probably because she knew the release date. And she's like, where's my book? That's probably why. So that makes more sense now. But anyway, so I put it back. I never got caught. But then she finally let me read one of Stephen King's books. And that was, what is it? The Eyes of Darkness. No. The Eyes of the Dragon. The Eyes of Darkness is Dean Koontz. The Eyes of the Dragon. I literally had to turn around and look at my shelf to figure out what it was called, and I was able to read that. But what I really wanted to read. Now let's go back to me being 9 years old. We're jumping back and forth. This is life after Dane, baby. We're jumping back and forth. So back when I was 9. And I snuck into the Great Book Closet. And I would do it from time to time after that, too, up until reading Dolores Claiborne. And then I started buying them. I used to save up my lunch money and buy them myself, the Stephen King paperbacks. But we'll get to that. We still got quite a ways to go, at least 15 minutes left. So I had opened up The Cycle of the Werewolf. Oh my gosh. Hang on. I'm not going back again. This is crazy. Yeah. Okay, there we go. Hopefully it doesn't go off again. Let me completely turn off all notifications, because watch, I'm gonna forget about it. Ty, I know I'm gonna forget about it, and I'm gonna be like, I'm so sorry, because someone will have messaged me, and I and I won't see it for 3 or 4 days because I have my notifications turned off. I really don't spend that much time on my phone. Anywho, so going back, The Cycle of the Werewolf. And now he's reaching for his phone. Good gravy. The way things work out is crazy. The Cycle of the Werewolf, with illustrations by Bernie Wrightson, who would become my favorite artist of all time. So I would flip through The Cycle of the Werewolf, and there's that one page that I don't even have to look at now to remember. This woman, beautiful woman with red hair, and this woven claw, this hand covered in fur with talons, like caressing her face. I was like, I gotta read this, but I can't read it because, so on and so forth. I didn't want to get caught, so I never read it. And for the longest time, even after I started reading Stephen King, in my teenage years, and I was allowed to read it, I never read that one. I think the reason why, and I like to think this is kind of a romantic thought, but I'd like to think that the reason why it took me so long to read it was because I was afraid that the words would not live up to the pictures, because Bernie Wrightson was absolutely fantastic. So that's how I came to start reading Stephen King. And because we only have because we only have like 13 minutes or so left, I think it's more than that. I think it's about 20 minutes. But I want to talk to Hayley for a minute. So, Roman, I was a bullied kid. I was fat from the day I was born. I was 12 pounds, nearly 12 pounds. I was 11 pounds, 12 ounces, I believe. I was fat my entire life. I've been fat my entire life. This is the thinnest, not thinnest. This is the smallest, the least I've weighed since high school. I hit 400 pounds in high school, and now I'm under 300 for the first time in my life, and most of me is belly now. Uh, and I can't get rid of it. It's probably the stress, is any number of things. I can't get rid of the belly fat. But anyways, I was bullied. I was an outcast, and that's why the last Freak Show meant so much to me, because it was a book for outcasts, even among outcasts. And I couldn't even find friends in the other nerds or fat kids. All of them wanted to be part of the other social circles. They didn't want to be friends with me. Two bullied kids just makes two targets. So yeah, a lot of your email resonated with me, and it was very hard to read through the tears. But I think the thing that struck me the most was that you were a kid that found inspiration in me. And while I know my son looks up to me. My son has told me, I had a moment with him where I was like, hey man, I'm just worried that I'm not going to be a decent role model like my father wasn't. My father was a role model for what not to do. And Chris, he looked at me and he goes, Dad, you're a great role model. But to have someone else look at me that way that I technically do not know, and you're basically a stranger to me, Roman, to have been that someone, to have been someone Stephen King, to mean something to someone as much as Stephen King means to me, yeah, it meant something. Coffee break. Hang on. Smooth. Yeah, so Hayley. I specifically brought up Bernie Wrightson and his artwork because I need you to know how special you are. And you sent me an email saying, you thanking me partly for always. I don't remember what it is. I don't have to pull out my phone, but basically it said that I've always supported your writing and your art. I wish you gave yourself more credit. I really, really wish you gave yourself more credit. You have a brilliant imagination. You could be a best-selling children's book author overnight. The way you write, the stories you tell, and the quirky little characters that you create, your snails, Hayley, snail tales. That should be paying your bills right now. Something like that is like a once in a lifetime thing. That's like a Harry Potter. That's like a Very Hungry Caterpillar. The snail tales needs to happen. And I wish one of the things that I was going to do, I don't know. I didn't really want to, I don't like talking about things that, I want to do for people, because I don't want it to seem like I'm bragging. But one of the things that hurt me so much when all of my movie stuff fell through was that I was going to help my friends. And one of the things that I was going to do is I was going to pay you a livable wage just so you could work on Snail Tales. And that's one of the reasons why I vanished like I have, because I feel like I let you guys down. And I'm not fishing for sympathy or any of that shit. I want you to know that it breaks my heart And it hurts that I couldn't do that for you. But I do hope that you continue to work on your passion projects. I hope that one day they make you so much money that you don't know what to do with it. And that you, and I know you will, so that you can then go out and help your friends become as great as you are. To motivate someone, like you say, I've motivated you, or I've inspired you, or any of that stuff. And I really wish you saw your talent and you didn't make light of it. It breaks my heart to know that you don't think you're as fan-fucking-tastic as you are. You are kind, you are generous. You are a wonderful person. And I'm so glad you have Rob that makes you so happy. Because everyone deserves a shell. Everyone deserves a shell while I'm talking about snail tails. That's funny. But I was talking about my wife. It's a double meaning there. Everyone deserves a shell. Everyone deserves someone to protect you. To protect them. And to make them smile and happy and feel safe and comfortable. And Rob is to you what Shell is to me. And I hope you guys live happily ever after for all your days. I really truly believe that you will. And if anything happens between you two, please don't come back here and blame me. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I got a little too mushy and I had to break up the mushiness with a joke. So, also, if you ever need it, this one's for Ifa. Yeah, that one's for her. It's crazy that you let me name your cat. I mean, that's one of those things that I look back on and I'm like, dude, why? There's plenty of other great names out there. Why'd you take mine? Oh, that's Murray. Murray outside Borfin. Well, scream barking. He must want to be let back in. He will shortly. Or he won't. Michelle might be taking the trash down. I don't know. But I apologize if y'all can hear Murray in the background. I promise he's not being tortured. And sometimes it does sound like that. A lot of the time it sounds like that. And I wonder what our neighbors think about. And then I remember I don't have neighbors. It's like, I live so far out in the country, it doesn't even matter. I really wanted to get out of here. I really wanted to leave this place. So Nettles, if you and Duck, if y'all read this, I feel like I'm writing when I'm doing these. If y'all watch this or listen to this, I just want you to know that I tried to get out of here. I tried many, many times. Between the Klan incidents, between, threats and drive-bys and things like that, between all that stuff, that's why I don't let the trolls bother me these days, because, you can't even find me. So what does it matter? It's... Even if you have my address, the mail can't... I know I've told you guys, the mail truck can't even find us. So if somebody does show up trying to threaten me, I'm going to tell them to go try and get a job at the Postal Service. Just so we can actually get our mail. It's like, hey, go work at USPS down here. Anyways, I don't know what I'm doing here. Oh, I'm taking a picture. This is another thing I've been doing. Instead of marking up my books, I'm one of those nut jobs that will absolutely deface a book just so I can write in the margins and underline things and circle things and highlight things. I will 100% destroy my books because they're my books. My books. I hope that wasn't too loud. It doesn't matter, but I hope it wasn't. If it was and you're wearing headphones, I apologize. Next up, I want to talk to Ty. Brother, I read your story. Man, goddamn, you're good. It needs some editing, but goddamn, you're good. And I really do wish you saw that. Your story ideas, your premises. And while the writing might need a little bit of work, you are a fantastic, fantastic storyteller. You're engaging, and you bring that you bring that view of the world that not many have. And I really find it funny that you have come into this world of malehood, of being a man, and seeing it's been an experience, a very interesting experience watching you experience being a man and seeing all the stuff that we go through, and going, hey, maybe dudes weren't so bad after all, or maybe there's a reason for how they are, that kind of thing. And you're experiencing something that women just don't experience, because I am very, very aware of how women perceive me. I am a very large guy. I am not the happy-go-lucky dude that I am when I'm online, when I'm in public, because I'm usually scared or nervous or just panicking, because I don't want to be outside. So I seem like a danger, and women will skirt me and they'll clutch their purse, and they'll, I had one lady draw a knife on me just for walking by, and it was like, I don't know what was in my eyes or whatever, but to know that I'm just a natural threat, a perceived threat, not a natural threat, a perceived threat, is bonkers to me. Because the only people I've ever hurt in my life were other men who tried to hurt me first. And yeah, it's been interesting. I have had trans friends before, but with you, it's been quite different because you are very open with me, and I love you for that, brother. I love you for it. I love the fact that you are open with me, and you will discuss the things that you are going through. And I'll sit back and I'll just kind of smile. I'm not laughing at you or smiling at you or anything like that. It's like, yeah, I mean, that's how it is to be a dude. And it's also very interesting because I didn't realize that the mindset would change so much for you. And I guess that's because, like you said, and like everybody said, you were born a dude. You're born a man. And but you still had the biology, and you still kind of, y'all hear the birds and I promise you, these are not sound effects. If you can hear them, there's a bird, there's a train. A bird and a train. Come on, Superman? No? Okay, fine. We'll go back to what I was talking about. Anyways, Ty, it's been interesting, and I'm so goddamn proud of you. You are a fantastic writer. You are a wonderful, wonderful human being. And it's been my absolute pleasure to call you my friend. Please don't ever stop writing. And congratulations on finishing your first book. And yes, I said finishing. I know you have multiple rounds of editing, and you're going to try and perfect the fuck out of this thing, and you might not even ever publish it because it's never perfect. It's never exactly how you want it to. And I beg you, right here, right now, do not let that stop you from publishing. Because it's never going to be perfect. Even if it's perfect today, it won't be perfect tomorrow. And that's what makes you a good storyteller. That's what going to make you a terrific writer, is that you are constantly going to want to improve. And don't ask me to edit your story because I don't have time. But yeah, you need to find an editor. It's not, like I said, it's not terrible, but I think you're a perfect example, just like Derek. Both of you are a perfect example of what I've been saying all this time in my From the Desk and all that stuff. I say it on live streams all the time, and that is this: you cannot teach storytelling, but you can teach writing. If you are a natural storyteller, you can go far in this world as far as the writing business is. But if you can't write, I don't know if there's a place for you. And definitely, Derek and Ty, definitely, I firmly believe that you guys are amazing storytellers. But you just need a little work on the mechanics. That's it. I promise you. I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. What the fuck I got to lie about nowadays? Even if I'm not gone tomorrow, I don't have any reason to. I'm going to be gone eventually, And I kind of wish everyone, and it's going to sound terrible, but I kind of wish everyone had a ticking clock. Because it really makes you not care. It really makes you feel like, hey, I can say and do whatever I want. Now, if you're not a horrible person like a serial killer or something, that's what I'm talking about. Um, but even serial killers get fan mail. So what do I know? Just don't harm people is a message I would go out. Don't actively try to harm somebody. And if you do have to harm somebody, try to find somebody who deserves it. Um, or someone who's come at you first. I don't know where I'm going with that. I'm really not trying to turn y'all into serial killers. I promise that. Um, yeah, I'm here. I'm thinking about my friends. I'm drinking my coffee out of my Krampus mug, as I do. As I do. Also, I'm talking about mugs and things not lasting forever. I broke my it mug. Yeah, it still hurts. Not only because I paid $60 for it, $50 for it, and $10 shipping from a lady who I can't find anymore, who was on Instagram. I saw it and I was like, I gotta have that. It was one of a kind. She made it specifically for me. And what I mean by that is like, how'd you find it online? Well, here's what happened. I was on Instagram and I just happened to swipe up. I was going through like this hashtag Stephen King stuff, and she was selling her mugs, and one of the mugs was a white it mug. And I was like, can you do that, but with a red interior? That would be awesome. And she goes, well, I normally don't remake things, but I mean, if you want me to, then $50 with $10 shipping? Question mark. And I was like, you got a deal. It's the most I've ever spent. Probably the most I've ever spent on anything in my kitchen other than like, the Instapot. And actually, no, I got the Instapot for $39.99. My Ninja was... No, I think that was like 100. But anyways, it doesn't matter. Here at the end, I want these videos to go on, and a couple minutes before the end, I want to ask you guys a question. Do you believe in yourself? Do you? This is especially for Roman and Ty and Hayley. Do you believe in yourself? If you don't, I want you to tell me why. Okay? Just email me and tell me why. I'll read them. I'm not reading the comments, but I'll read them. I really want to know why you don't believe in yourself. Is it a trauma response? Were you told, like I was told, that I wasn't good enough? My father told me all the time that I would never be better than him. And so instead of being a father figure, there's like, hey, I want you to be better than I was. My father wanted me to be as bad as he was. He wanted me to be worse, because anytime I would succeed, anytime I would get good grades, and this is another reason why I flunked out. I dropped out of school. Anytime I would get there, he would be like, don't you ever think you're better than me. And it was kind of his mantra. Don't you ever think you're better than me. So I know failure. Roman, Ty, Hayley. I am well versed in failure. Because I grew up with a man who exuded failure. It clung to him like a funk. A funk so thick you could damn near see the waves coming off of him. You guys are not failures. You guys are beautiful and talented. And I wish that you would believe in yourself. All of you. Every single one of you. I wish you believed in yourself. The only time, I said I would talk about this later, but the only time my father ever hit us was he hit my mother. She had just got promoted at work, and she came home, and we had a big dinner, and she told us at the kitchen table. And my dad was eerily silent, sitting there, his fork scraping across the plate. He looked at her, and he slapped her so hard across the face. She started crying, and he said, don't you ever think you're better than me. That night, while I slept in my bed, I was awoken by a gong, and my mother grabbing me by the shirt and pulling me up out of bed and saying, don't you ever lay a hand on a woman. And as she walked away, I noticed the frying pan dangling from her right fist. Yeah, she got him. Then 17 years later, I threw him out of a sliding glass door. But that's for another time. It's a story. If you guys want to hear it, let me know. Have a good one.